My name is Andrew Austin, and these are my top 8 tips for beginning musicians that want to make it in music. First, my story is that I am a classically trained musician. I started out playing trombone and studied that in college. Picked up guitar and bass. I've played in jazz bands, and most recently I've gotten really into guitar and singing. I moved to Sweden and I work with music. I've worked in education, and I've also have released music through labels and play semi-regularly in the United States and in Sweden, and I'm able to make some money with it. Now, I don't consider myself to be an amazing success, but I'm able to do it on the side, and music is pretty much what I do every day, and I absolutely love it, and I'm every year getting a little bit better than I am before. And so with these tips, I'm not claiming to know everything, but I've learned a lot, and I feel like if you take some of these tips and you really work on them, I think it'll help accelerate you in the process, because it's taken me about 7 to 8 years to start figuring things out, and I still have a long way to go. But I want to share my knowledge with you, and that's what I'm going to do on this channel. With music that you will see me play, I can also share some things I've learned along the way in hopes that it can help others. Number one is practice. Obviously, that's going to be one of the most important things. But when you start out with an instrument and you're learning it, you might want to start out with just 10 minutes a day and then slowly build up to it. I remember when I started running long distance running, it was the same way. You had to build up to the mileage. It's the same with learning an instrument. You have to be consistent with it. There were so many times where maybe when I was starting out where I'd only practice for like an hour a couple times a week, but really it's that consistent practice. This is when you work at something a little bit every day. That, to me, that's much more important than maybe practicing 3 times a week really, really hard. It's the consistency. And over time, you're really going to see that. If you start out playing a brass instrument, flutes, guitar, it doesn't matter, or singing, there's different muscles and different things that we're using and different techniques that takes time. So if you're playing guitar, your fingers have to be willing to stretch out. If you're playing a brass instrument, your muscles and your lips have to adjust, or even the same with the throat. You're learning those vocal techniques. So that is something very important to consider and continue with. Number 2 is mistakes are great, and this is the hardest one for me because I hate when I make mistakes. I have a hard time watching any video I've done on here, any video of me playing and recording live. I am constantly seeing mistakes that I've made, but the truth is mistakes are the quickest way to learn. So when we make mistakes, we have to really think, wow, I made a mistake. Okay, great. How can I learn from this? And it doesn't even, the best thing about this is not just about music, it's anything you do in life. If you're into fitness, you look and see how your progress is going, what you can do better. If you're learning a language, you have to speak it and make mistakes. If you're learning a subject like math, I used to think when I was in math as a kid, I used to be afraid to go to the board and work out a problem. So I would work really hard to look at someone else's paper, get the work so I could go to the board and write it down the right way. Man, I really wish now that I would have just made mistakes and been proud of it. So change the way you think. Making mistakes is not that big of a deal. It's a nice thing to do because you're constantly learning. And if you can keep that approach, it'll really help you in music because you're going to make tons of mistakes. You might, for example, go to a gig and a string breaks on your guitar, but because it's never happened before and you're a young musician, you'll learn the next time you go to a gig that, okay, I gotta have extra strings, I have to have an extra cable, I have to have an extra microphone. Or it could be the same with an instrument such as a reed instrument where your reed breaks and you didn't have a reed. These are the way we learn, so move from that. Number 3 is to record yourself. This is really important and so much easier now. Most of us have smartphones. Now I recommend using recording yourself with video, and the reason for that is I believe that music is also visual. So if you're a musician, you play gigs, that's really, really important. I used to sing in a band, and when I was first starting out and singing in the band and being the lead singer for the band, I didn't have a guitar in my hands, and that was what I was used to. So I had to move around, and I tried to use movement when I would play and sing. And there were times I noticed that when other musicians were playing, or if a guitarist was playing, that maybe I took away from them sometimes because I moved too much. So that's really helped me. A lot of times if I practice a song or learn a new song, I'll listen to myself how I did it 3-4 times as I'm walking down the street or doing anything else to kind of critique myself and learn from that. Number 4 is to take every opportunity that comes to you. If you have a chance to audition for something, go for it. If there's an open mic, go for it. If you have a chance to play with other musicians, go for it. If you can collaborate with other people, go for it. Take every opportunity that comes to you. If you're willing to take every opportunity, if someone offers you a gig and you don't feel like doing that night, take it, because you're going to become more reliable, and people are going to be willing to work with you when they can see how motivated you are. Number 5, again, number 4 and 5 go the same, but it's play live. Playing live is really important. I can remember one time I was with one group in particular, and we would play and we would practice all the time in a practice room, and we would play live, and I had some disagreements with the other musicians because they would say, we need to practice more, we need to practice more. When we play live, it isn't good enough. My opinion really is, no, we need to play live more, because you can practice all you want in a studio, all you want without people there, but it isn't until you're playing in front of people, making mistakes in person, and learning how the crowd feels off of you, and how you take emotion from the crowd, and how you can build energy with each other, that you really learn more. And all these skills go together, but that's the other thing, is playing live. Play live as much as you can. Go to an open mic. You got to go to an open mic and play plenty of times until you're worth it for them to pay you to play somewhere, and that's where you pick up. Do those things now. Put your gears into that. That's really going to help you. I cannot stress that enough as a new musician. Number 6 is to stay humble. I remember when I was in high school and I thought that I couldn't learn anything else on trombone. I was the best trombone player. Suddenly you go to college and you find, wow, there are so many people that are better than me. And what a great thing, because that means that we're always going to keep learning. But it's the same. When you're working on music, you might think, wow, something's great. And then you realize, guess what? There's 50 other thousand people that are just as great as you, or a million people just as good as you, or millions of people. And because of that, you always have to stay humble. Do that. Never get a big head, because realize that that's not going to get you anywhere. You have to be someone that just loves music in general. If you love music, realize that there's other great musicians out there, and there's plenty of people that play guitar or sing that I see that I'm constantly learning from. And when you have that kind of attitude, trust me, they're going to be more willing to help you and give you opportunities to come to you. Number 7, and this is the biggest one that I have been learning and working on, is social media. Don't do what I did. Don't start out and then be playing gigs live and maybe getting chances to record music, but not having your social media presence together. Because really, if you don't have your social media game up to par, who's going to listen to it? I've had this YouTube channel for a while, and I haven't really started working with it. So now I'm working to build my YouTube channel, to get people to go to my Spotify, to get people to go to my SoundCloud. And if I would have done all that at the same time, I would be in a better spot. But the good news is, like I said, mistakes are great. As I said in number 2, so I'm learning from that and I'm pushing forward, and I don't think you have anything to worry about. But if you are new and starting out, start building your YouTube channel, start putting content up there. Use SoundCloud, put music out there, start building connections, have a Facebook page, have an Instagram, use Snapchat. Use these things that are available, because that's how musicians nowadays have to promote themselves. That way, when you release something, the chances of more people listening to it gets much, much higher. And number 8 is to constantly listen to music. Sometimes I play music that's my own, sometimes I'm playing covers. A lot of times when I'm playing covers, the biggest way that I practice, although I am practicing, I'll pick up the instrument and practice and play the chords, but a lot of times I have playlists on my Spotify, which is my gig list that I want to do. And there might be 150 songs, or there are songs that I like to play. But what I do is I listen to that music throughout the week before I have a gig on a weekend, and that's the way I practice. I listen to how the artist plays it. I'm constantly listening to how they sing it, and that really helps me get familiar with the song. Plus, listening to new music is going to give you a chance to learn more from others. So these are my top 8 tips. I'm sure I'm going to come up with other lists in the future, because I'm sure I've missed some things here. If you like what I have offered, I'd really appreciate it if you can give me a thumbs up. Also, on my page and in the description below, you'll see links to my SoundCloud, to my Spotify, my Facebook. And I'd really appreciate it if you give some of my music a listen if you're interested. And if you like the content as well, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. I will continue to put content up. I will put content of me playing music live, and that content will get better as I keep improving. So I think for you it'll be fun to see me improving with YouTube. But also I will give you useful advice with things that I'm learning with music, and maybe some daily vlogs of what it's like to maybe live in a foreign country by yourself as an American and working with music. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful week.